Би жаргал сайхан байна. Та юу чадхаа, юу байгаагаараа, хаа байгаа газараа хичээнгүйлэн хий. Theodore Roosevelt. Тав гарагийн үдэш NTV-гээр уулзъя. Сайн байцгааны хүнд үзэгчдээ манай өнөөдөр defacto нэвтрүүлгийн зочноор Хонконгийн хөрөнгийн биржийн хувьцаа гаргах гэж байгаа компаниудыг хариуцсан маркетингийн ахлах дэд ерөнхийлөгч Эрик Landheer оролцож байна.
Эрик Landheer Хонконгийн хөрөнгийн биржийн маркетинг албаны дэд ерөнхийлөгч. Ноён Landheer өөрийн эрхэлж байгаа ажлын хүрээнд дэлхийн олон улс оронд зохион байгуулагдсан хурал зөвлөгөөнд илтгэл тавьж, хэвлэл мэдээллийн хэрэгслүүдтэй идэвхтэй хамтран ажилладаг. Тэрээр Хонконгийн хөрөнгийн биржид ажиллахаас өмнө Азийн улс орнууд Nasdaq хөрөнгийн биржийн үйл ажиллагааг үргэлжлүүлэх чиглэлээр ажиллаж байсан. Түүний удирдлагадор Nasdaq хөрөнгийн биржээр байршсан хятадын компаниудын тоо 2 дахин нэмэгдсэн бөгөөд хятадын компаниуд Америк нэгдсэн улсын компаниудын дараа тус хөрөнгийн биржийн хөрөнгийн 2 дахь их үүсвэр гэж тооцогдож байна. Эрик Landheer санхүүгийн салбарт 17 жил ажилласан туршлагатай. Беркли дахь Калифорник сургуулийг төгссөн хятад хэлтэй.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to Mongolia.
Thank you. Beautiful country you have here.
Thank you. What are you doing now?
Well, I'm here basically visiting to actually give a speech about listing in Hong Kong. Hong Kong has become an increasingly desired location for international companies to list. And so obviously Mongolia is a rapidly developing economy.
Everybody's getting crazy about Hong Kong here. Yeah. So why do people just flock into Hong Kong? Why?
Well, we think it's several reasons. First of all, our geographical location in the center of Asia, the fact that a lot of the professionals, the investment banks, the financial intermediaries are increasingly located in Hong Kong, and our really diverse investor base. So we have a very international investor base, a good mix of retail investors as well as institutional investors.
And sectoral-wise too?
All sectors actually, but the sectors that we're really focused on right now are mining and mineral resource companies.
How come that you started to concentrate on mining and resource companies?
Well, as I'm sure you're aware, there's been a massive commodities boom, in particular driven by demand from Asia and specifically China.
China, yes.
And so as that has occurred, more and more of the financial intermediaries want to be closer to the demand side of the equation. And obviously Hong Kong is perfectly positioned for that.
And how come Mongolia gets that much hooked with?
Well, we've already had 3 listings of Mongolian or Mongolian-related companies, including a very successful one, Mongolian Mining Corporation, South Gobi, which actually is incorporated in Canada but has Mongolian assets, and, of course, Mongolian Energy, which was one of the first companies from Mongolia to list.
Tell us about this Mongolian Energy, and what kind of asset is this for you, and what part of your Hong Kong Stock Exchange is this now?
Well, specifically, this is obviously one of the first major companies to list out of Mongolia in the Hong Kong Exchange, and it's one that obviously is a natural resources company and one that has done extremely well, I believe, over time, and led the sort of trailblazed, if you will, for other companies that choose to seek a listing in Hong Kong as well.
Yeah, everybody is now so happy about that success. We will come back to this first IPO, then I will ask you more question about the secondary market situation now.
Sure.
But before that, I'd like to ask you a question. You're an American, right?
That's correct,
American,
yeah.
From California?
From California, yeah. San Francisco, to be exact.
And you studied at Berkeley. Tell us about the school. We know somehow. We know it's a famous school. Tell us about it, please.
Well, actually, UC Berkeley is a very interesting place. It's a very intellectual place, and I think many people actually incorrectly identify Berkeley with protests and very liberal sort of movements, if you will. The reality is that UC Berkeley, as an institution of higher learning, is an extremely good school, and you can see that by the student body overall. Of course, I'm an exception to this rule, but in general,
you
it's very.
You studied Chinese there or later?
I actually studied Chinese at the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California, and that is actually for the military and for other areas like that. So I learned my Mandarin Chinese there in an intensive 1-year course, basically all Chinese all the time.
Wow! So how come you decided to come to Asia?
Well, obviously I learned Chinese. This is now approximately 20 years ago when I learned Chinese. So
wow.
I'm giving away a bit of my age, I suppose.
You look very young.
Well, thank you. So do you.
Thank you.
But I decided to study it at the time because I felt that obviously this was going to be an increasingly important part of the world. I'm sure you're aware of this. If you can speak English, Spanish, and Chinese, you could communicate with 2/3 of the world's population.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
So, unfortunately, my Spanish is not very good, but my Chinese is good enough to get me in trouble.
What you have been doing with NASDAQ?
Well, for the past 7 years, prior to joining the Hong Kong Exchange, I actually worked for the NASDAQ Stock Exchange.
In New York?
Not in New York. I actually originally started working for them out of the Menlo Park office, which is in California, in the Bay Area.
Please tell us about a little bit NASDAQ compared to New York Stock Exchange, size-wise, speed-wise, and different market-wise. What difference?
Well, I don't want to pitch the NASDAQ now because I don't work there anymore.
My audience want to learn more
Sure.
about the difference of these
Sure.
two stock exchanges.
Well, obviously, the New York Stock Exchange, I believe, their main sort of selling point is their history. The 200-year-plus history. Some of the more sizable companies are there. But in general, their trading systems and their overall sort of mode of operation, in my opinion, are a bit outdated. They, for quite some time, clung to this sort of old physical trading floor. And you still see it now, but
how come that still keeps going on in this global...
It's more of marketing.
Internet world. Market capitalization-wise, how you would see the two market?
Well, the New York Stock Exchange, in terms of listed companies, has actually a larger market capitalization.
How about NASDAQ?
NASDAQ, I believe, is around $4 trillion in market capitalization.
It's about 3 times less.
Yeah, about that, yeah.
Well, how many people work for NASDAQ?
At the time when I was there, I think we had around 1,200 employees.
1,200 employees.
1,200 employees. And so now at the Hong Kong Exchange, we have 800 employees.
Okay.
And the Hong Kong Exchange, of course, is the largest exchange in terms of market capitalization. We are currently almost $25 billion U.S. in our own listed market capitalization.
So Hong Kong Stock Exchange system is based like technology like NASDAQ?
Yes, basically every exchange in the world is moving towards an electronic system or already has an electronic system. And the Hong Kong Exchange is truly an electronic matching system. So if you added up the London Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ, and the NYSE, their entire market cap does not match that of Hong Kong Exchange by itself.
Is it because the Asia economy is big, or it is more liquidity in Hong Kong, or it's more confidence there?
I think it actually is a combination of all of these, to be honest with you. And I think it really comes down to the Asian growth story.
In a way, it's sort of a kidney for Chinese economy to supply with money, no?
Well, to be honest, actually right now, officially only 5% of the turnover is accounted for by Chinese investors. So it's
by Chinese investors.
By Chinese investors. And the bulk of, over half of it actually is institutional investors. About 70% of the trading on a daily basis is institutional, 30% of that's retail. Half of the turnover is actually international investors. Including UK investors.
But those money invested into at the stock exchange securities run by companies working or developing or producing in China, no?
Actually, quite a few of them are. But actually, in reality, if you look at some of our largest market capitalization companies, like an HSBC, for example, it's actually listed in both the UK as well as in Hong Kong.
Oh, speaking about this dual listing, HSBC, which part of HSBC is larger, in London or in Hong Kong?
I believe the Hong Kong listing is.
Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So dual listing, how much is realistic for Mongolian companies?
I think it's very realistic. If you look at, for example, South Gobi are actually originally listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange, and then did a secondary on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. That's
in the south of Mongolia, nearby Ivanhoe.
Yes, you know it very well.
It's close to the border, and I think a very good, very dynamic shares.
Indeed. And South Gobi, although they had their primary listing on the Toronto Stock Exchange, we saw the bulk of the volume and the liquidity shift to Hong Kong after they did their secondary listing in Hong Kong.
So it is market capitalization in Hong Kong larger than in Toronto?
Well, it's going to be a global market capitalization, and I think if you go back to HSBC, it's a global market capitalization that you have to look at, for example. So whether there's more in Hong Kong on a given day in terms of trading is a separate question entirely.
You have been meeting today Mongolian who? Financial analysts or whom you have been meeting, or the potential who wants to go to Hong Kong listed, or?
Well, we're fortunate. We had actually a listing seminar today to talk about listing in Hong Kong for Mongolian companies. And it was a tremendous turnout. We had about 250 individuals attend this conference, and I actually just came over from there.
Okay.
So I just gave a short speech there, and there were all types of companies represented there. Obviously, this is mainly a mining-driven economy at this point, but there were consumer companies there were conglomerates there, all types of companies.
Every type of industry, companies can go, provided they meet your requirements.
Absolutely.
Right? What are the minimum requirements to be listed in Hong Kong for Mongolian companies, for any companies?
Well, we basically have 3 separate tests that we look at, and any company has to meet any one of those 3 tests. There is a profit test, there is a revenue and market cap test, and then finally there is what we call a revenue, market cap, and cash flow test. And so any company that meets any one of those 3 requirements can actually list on the Hong Kong Exchange.
But there are certain conditions in terms of corporate governance, management,
Absolutely.
reporting. Tell us about that part.
Well,
Please.
we maintain extremely high corporate governance standards, extremely high quantitative standards and financial standards, and we believe that this adds to the investor confidence in our market and actually is a strong selling point for our market as well.
I have seen several prospects prepared for Hong Kong Stock Exchange, and I have seen very solid format of reporting, like a 10Q in the U.S. Tell us what is this reporting system is about in Hong Kong.
Well, in Hong Kong, we actually operate under a semi-annual reporting system. So semi-annual. So unlike the U.S., where it's a quarterly reporting system.
Yes, semi-annual. Okay. Yeah. What's your financial year end?
Financial year end, I believe, is December. It depends on each. Many companies have different financial year ends.
Yeah, but overall, after this goes, semi-annual, the report is to be made to Hong Kong Stock Exchange.
Yeah.
Which is they are certainly to report it on their website and simultaneously on your website, no?
Yes, they need to disclose financial information. We operate on a continuous disclosure basis. And so anytime there's material news about a company, with the exception in some cases of a merger or an acquisition, they have to report that to the entire public at the same time.
Material news, what do you mean?
For example,
I'm just asking for people who should understand that.
Sure. When I'm talking about any type of material news, what I'm really talking about is something that would move the price of the stock.
Exactly.
And so we want to maintain equality for all investors.
And of course, prices to reflect all the information related to this company or commodity.
Exactly.
In that sense, do you have different type of shares by Chinese companies, the A, B, what is this?
No, we do not. We do not have a different system.
Shanghai Stock Exchange or?
Shanghai Stock Exchange and Shenzhen, I believe Shenzhen Stock Exchange have different classes of shares.
Okay.
In Hong Kong, we have 2 boards.
Yes.
We have the GEM board, which is our junior board, and more like a stepping stone to the main board.
In AIM in England?
Actually, much higher standards than the AIM.
By size or?
In terms of financial requirements, in terms of corporate governance and regulatory requirements, the AIM entire pitch, I believe, is around low regulatory standards.
I see. So you have a junior board, and the other is?
And the other is the main board, of course.
Main board.
And the junior board is called the GEM market, or the growth enterprise market. And then the main board, of course, is the one where most of the larger companies go. So for smaller companies that eventually are striving to become larger companies, very often they will start at the GEM board and eventually transition to the main board.
Maybe it's even better?
I think it depends on where the company is in its life cycle, and whether or not they're really prepared to go public at that juncture. A GEM board listing, again, has very high standards as well. However, it's for different size companies.
Is there any company listed at the GEM board related to Mongolia?
At this point, I don't believe so, no.
Okay. How many now Mongolian-related stocks you have?
I think it depends on how you calculate it, but officially speaking, I think we could say that we have 4 at this juncture. And it varies on how you look at it in terms of incorporation or place of incorporation or what the major ownership is. But that ranges, I believe, anywhere between 3 to 5 companies.
3 to 5 companies. Most prominent is this Mongolian Mining Corporation?
That's absolutely right. I think they're trading at a market capitalization that now is approaching $5 billion U.S.
What was the original?
I think they came out just over a couple billion, so it's done extremely well.
Okay, so all the market capitalization almost twice more.
I think they've done, very well.
Those money raised at your stock exchange, certainly to be spended for particular purposes, though which is specified in their business plan, right?
Yes, generally speaking, a company needs to have a strong business plan. They need to have
and those expenses to go according to the business plan, right?
Yes, spent for what the purposes that they explain in the prospectus.
It is to be reported accordingly
to
the stakeholders.
Yes.
Do you have any? There is circuit break at any stock exchange.
Yeah.
Do you have such a regulation in Hong Kong Stock Exchange?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
In the U.S., there is, if up to 2 p.m., the 10% value goes down, they have a circuit break.
Right. I think that's a recent institution since the flash crash, obviously.
Okay. So there was basically a big subprime crisis, financial crisis, and how was it in Hong Kong? This financial crisis reflected?
Well, as I'm sure you're aware, actually, that sort of contagion, if you will, which many people believe began in the U.S. with the subprime crisis, it actually impacted the entire world. Fortunately for Asia and Hong Kong and other countries in Asia, the impact of that was very short-lived. And the strong growth and economic growth that has come out of Asia in general has made that very short-lived, and I think Asia economies in general have come out of it quite well.
Yep. Then, if there is any concerns you have, because the situation in China, RMB appreciation, or food crisis, or increase of prices for food. Are there any reflection in your stock exchange on the market capitalizations?
Well, to be honest with you, obviously, if there is a major crisis anywhere in Asia, I believe it'll have an impact on all the exchanges in the region, and not only in the region, but on a global basis as well. Asia has become such a major force in the global economy in general that any major crisis here will have a major impact on a global basis. I think it used to be more that what happened in the Western economies influenced the price movements here in Asia much more. Now it appears to be shifting very much as the center of gravity for the global economy has shifted to Asia. And very often things that happen in Asia now impact the U.S. markets.
What you would say to companies, or you have been telling today, to companies who want to come to the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, to Mongolian companies?
Well, first of all, I would say that obviously we share a lot of attributes with Mongolia in terms of geographical locations, similar time zones. I think a lot of shared similarities in terms of culture as well. And so I think that, and the fact that Hong Kong is a free economy, the fact that we have an independent legal system, and which is governed by rule of law, and the fact that we have an extremely transparent and efficient listing regime, I believe are all positive things for Mongolian companies that choose to list there.
Now you see, Mongolian government is paying a lot of attention to get finally Mongolian-owned stock exchange working properly. They have recently signed, you have heard probably, with London Stock Exchange, who will bring the hardware technology. And obviously, hardware technology is not enough for having a successful stock exchange.
Yes.
What are the components of the successes?
Really what I think is required for this to be successful is also to maintain extremely high corporate governance standards, to maintain high listing standards, to build investor confidence in the markets, and also to build the liquidity in the marketplace itself.
See, this is a range of issues where you must have stable legal environment.
Absolutely.
And a strong reporting culture. And very transparent actions for companies in particular who is listed, right?
Absolutely.
And in that sense, can you advise what particular things we have to pay attention in Mongolia for sound and strong stock exchange operation?
Well, the only advice that I would give is that I think it's very important to make investors feel that they are getting the same information for all investors, large or small, that they're all getting a fair shake, so to speak.
At the same time.
At the same time. So there shouldn't be insider trading, and the punishments for insider trading should be very strict.
Can you give us recall any this sort of things where in Hong Kong or in Nasdaq, whatever about the insider trading, just for example for my audience?
Well, I think the most famous case right now in terms of insider trading that's happening is obviously the Galleon case in the U.S. right now. And so this is a gentleman who managed billions of dollars.
Indian guy.
Yeah, but managed billions of dollars and now is clearly in the limelight in a negative way for the things that he's done. And then you also have other frauds that have occurred.
What he had done?
Well, allegedly he has traded on insider information that he gained from his position. So he abused his position inside the market, allegedly.
And this is two sides when you have insider information. You certainly get it from somebody and you act upon, right?
That's right.
So if the other side is also punished for giving
they should be, absolutely. I believe so. I mean, if you share information and other people trade on it, I believe you should be held responsible for that as well.
So basically, insider trading is you get information before anybody else,
and you trade on it.
And you trade on it
for your own profit.
Yes.
And your own benefit.
Unfortunately, this fraud is happening all around the world.
Yes.
And in order to prevent this sort of fraud, fraudulent activities, the laws to be really easy to understand and easy to enact.
Absolutely, and the punishment needs to be strict. I think you lose confidence in your market, in your marketplace, if people feel that certain people can get away with insider trading or can get away with doing these types of things without any fear of real punishment.
Well, that's something to do more. There's something we in Mongolia to pay more attention. So compared Australia Stock Exchange.
Yes.
Or now Mongolians more or less know Toronto Stock Exchange. What you will be highlight the difference with the stock of Hong Kong stock?
Well, to be frank, I'm not an expert on the Australian Stock Exchange.
But it's also a lot commodity driven stuff.
I think that's the main similarity. There's a couple major similarities with Australia and Mongolia. First of all, you are both low density in terms of population and both extremely wealthy in natural resources. So I think that a lot of lessons can be learned from that. Australian Stock Exchange, of course, also has a significant presence in mining and mineral companies and in natural resources companies in general. So I think that's where a lot of the similarities start and end, frankly.
Okay, how long do you live in Hong Kong?
I've been there for about 3.5 years now.
How is it like there living there?
Well, it's actually a great city. It's one of the greatest cities.
In which part do you live, Central or Hokkaido?
I live outside Central, actually, and so where I live, it's a little bit quieter than the Central area and not quite as crowded.
And the south side of the hill?
No. I'm not that wealthy, unfortunately.
Where?
I live actually closer to where the airport is.
Oh, that's a fantastic place.
Yeah, it's nice.
And how do you commute?
I take a ferry into work generally. So
fantastic. Go to your office by ferry.
Yes. So it's a ferry ride and then a short walk for me, actually.
You look very fit. Where do you exercise?
I'm not that fit, but I do try to get to the gym 2 to 3 times a week, and generally speaking, I practice Thai kickboxing.
Thai kickboxing.
Yes.
Wow. Hard?
Yeah, you could say
Painful.
that, I suppose. A little bit. It can be.
We have a champion in Mongolia, you know?
I wasn't aware of that, actually.
Yes, Mongolians, I think one of the world champion at their own weight is a Mongolian kickboxing.
Incredible.
Well, I like sport, but kickboxing is something that should be very painful.
Well, I do it mainly for exercise, not because I'm trying to compete or because I want to beat somebody up.
Have you been kicking somebody?
Just my trainer.
Okay. What else? What other exercise? I mean, you have been before. What were you doing?
Well, I like to play golf. Actually, yeah.
Wow, that's I like it.
Yeah, that is much more of a mental game than a physical game, I believe. But
yes,
it's very challenging, and I find it very interesting. And on the golf course, you have no one to blame but yourself if you play badly.
And plus, you spend such in a pleased way whole time, and it's a wonderful game.
If you're playing well. See, for me, if I'm playing well, then I forget about everything else, and I'm very happy. If I'm playing badly, I start to get very frustrated.
What's your handy?
I'm a 13 handicap currently.
Wow, quite well. We have some guys under that.
I'm sure.
You should play in Mongolia Golf.
I would love to.
Summertime.
Yeah.
Not winter. But winter we play in on-screen golf.
That's right. On-screen golf and the simulator, right? The video simulator.
Yeah, quite good simulator.
Yeah.
In Hong Kong, where do you play?
I play at various places, but I play at Discovery Bay Golf Course. I play also in other areas. Sometimes I'll go up to China and play. I played Fanling. I played Sheko. I've played many of the courses actually in Hong Kong.
With famous guys?
Sometimes, not generally not. I'm not that famous, so.
What I say is it should be fantastic in the South China part where Hong Kong is to play. It's 4 seasons, right, to play?
Yeah, you can play all year round. Absolutely. Although in the summertime it's a bit hot. And a bit hot and humid.
In winter, we wish we share our temperature, by average.
That's right. And actually, I'm very much looking forward to snowboarding here in Mongolia. I've heard that you have a great ski resort just outside of town.
Well, it is not just 20 minutes drive.
That's right.
Yeah, I go there every winter Sunday.
You're a skier then?
Yeah, okay. Used to ski in Colorado.
I'm a snowboarder, so I'm what they call a gray on a tray.
Okay. Anyway. So, you have been visiting Mongolia how many times?
This is actually my third trip to Mongolia.
Third trip. And you see there are so many things to improve. Road, traffic jam, and the way the city is designed. What is the most, the thing that stunned you?
Well, the one thing that obviously is slightly frustrating is the traffic here in UB. But I think that as the country grows wealthier, you will see massive improvements in infrastructure. And I'm very much looking forward to being able to play a small part in that wealth creation and in the development of the infrastructure here, hopefully.
I wish the same. Because that's what we must need in this city. And I think with this mining wealth coming to the country, we will do both. Not only wealth for the business people, also for the people who is living in the country, in the city in particular.
It should be, and that's my hope as well. One of the things that I'm most proud of and most happy about the job that I've had over the past, approximately 8 years now working in the exchange business, is that transformation. The entrepreneurs that create wealth and then redistribute that wealth among their employees, and then that goes into the economy, and you see that move into the infrastructure as well.
I think this is a social role played by the stock exchange equity market, because otherwise this company would not sustain their growth.
Precisely.
If they sustain this growth through equity, reporting well, getting finance, then they have a certain responsibility in front of their stakeholders, including employees who will have jobs. Otherwise, they may lose, etc.
Exactly.
So what you do is really, and what everybody who is working in capital market is a really wonderful job in that sense.
It can be. It certainly can be. The most exciting part of that, obviously, is I get to meet very interesting people from all different types of businesses. And entrepreneurs, I feel, are truly the risk takers in this world that enable everyone to have a better life.
Well, I have never seen non-entrepreneurial people giving jobs to somebody. So that's the very fact that you guys are here and Mongolians want to be listed, that means we have a good future.
I certainly hope so.
And our this entrepreneurship based on our mining wealth certainly will create more wealth.
Yes.
And to be shared and to make better the living standard.
I certainly hope so.
Eric, thank you very much for coming to this program.
Thank you so much for having me. I very much appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.